Engines roar across the South China Sea. Spray cuts through the morning haze. Two ships close distance in contested waters, neither one backing down. This isn't a training exercise. This is October 12th, 2025, off Thitu Island, where a confrontation between Chinese Coast Guard vessels and a Philippine Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources ship erupts into one of the most dangerous escalations in months. This is Naval Brief, and today we're breaking down a flashpoint that could reshape the balance in the South China Sea. Before we dive deeper, click like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive from Naval Brief. The Philippine Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources vessel BRP Thitu Sandy is on a resupply and patrol mission near Thitu Island, locally known as Pag-asa, one of the Philippines' most important outposts in the Spratly Islands. For the Philippines, these trips are business as usual. For Beijing, they're the kind of business they prefer to shut down. As the BRP Thitu Sandy sails through its own exclusive economic zone, radar pings light up the screen. Two fast-approaching contacts from the northwest. Their transponders, silent. Their flag, unmistakably, is China Coast Guard. Within minutes, at 10:42 a.m., a China Coast Guard vessel, hull number 5203, closes distance to within 300 meters of the Philippine ship. Another vessel, backed by what appears to be maritime militia boats, swings to the other side, boxing Thitu Sandy in. Then, the first blast of a high-pressure water cannon slams into the Thitu Sandy's port side. Crew grip the rails, drenched and rattled, but not surprised. Seconds later, the Chinese vessel rams the starboard aft section at an angle. Not a full collision, but a controlled strike. Not enough to sink anything, just enough to say, "You're not welcome here." The Philippine captain holds course. The radio crackles with warnings shouted in Mandarin and English. But the Thitu Sandy doesn't turn back, because if they did, that message would echo far louder than the spray against the hull. Thitu Island isn't just another reef. It's home to a small civilian population, a Philippine military detachment, and a modest airstrip. It sits just 430 kilometers west of Palawan, but only 26 kilometers from Subi Reef, which China has turned into a massive military base. U.S. forces operate nearby, and major shipping routes cut straight through the surrounding waters, which is exactly why everyone's watching like hawks. For years, Chinese vessels have used gray zone tactics here, shadowing patrols, blasting water cannons, and blocking access with uncanny timing. This latest clash marks a dangerous escalation. Hours later, Washington responds. The U.S. State Department issues a statement. The United States condemns the dangerous and destabilizing actions of the People's Republic of China near Thitu Island. We stand by our ally, the Philippines, and reaffirm that an armed attack on Philippine public vessels in the Pacific, including the South China Sea, would invoke mutual defense commitments under Article 4 of the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty. The language is deliberate, not just concern, but condemnation, not vague diplomacy. It's a line drawn in salt water. Allies in Tokyo and Canberra echo the U.S. The European Union calls the actions unacceptable. Beijing, on the other hand, responds through its foreign ministry. China has taken lawful control measures in waters under its jurisdiction. Translation: we're not backing off. This isn't the first time China has used force around Thitu Island. In March 2024, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel blocked a Philippine resupply ship with aggressive maneuvering. In June 2024, a similar incident at 2nd Thomas Shoal injured several crew members. And now, October 12, 2025, the most direct use of force against a civilian agency ship in nearly a year. Naval analysts note a shift. The tempo of harassment is rising. The distance from Chinese-occupied bases is shrinking. This is deliberate escalation. Control of Thitu means surveillance advantage over key shipping lanes. Proximity to Subi Reef and Mischief Reef bases. A symbolic challenge to China's 9-dash line. For the Philippines, Thitu is more than a rock in the sea. It's a statement of sovereignty. For Beijing, letting Manila hold that ground and resupply it openly is something they'd rather not allow. The encounter lasted nearly 90 minutes before the Chinese vessels pulled back, but the ramming caused visible hull damage to the Philippine ship. China has perfected its gray zone playbook. It's almost predictable at this point. There's no outright war. Not open peace either, just relentless pressure. Coast Guard does the shoving and blasting. The PLA Navy hangs back, watching, ready. It's pressure without open war. It allows Beijing to apply force without triggering war, a way to flex power without inviting a direct U.S. military response, especially against treaty allies like the Philippines. For the crews on the receiving end, it's less strategy and more survival. Sailing into waters where the threat is constant, but help is hours away. The Philippines isn't standing completely alone. Japan, Australia, the European Union, and the United States have all stepped up as allies and security partners. But those ships and aircraft aren't parked just over the horizon. They're hundreds of miles out, hours from the fight. In these waters, distance isn't just far. It's the difference between backup and being on your own. And this time, the reaction isn't quiet. It's louder, sharper, faster, less of a polite email chain, more of a coordinated blast across the diplomatic net. A harder line is beginning to form around Manila. Legally, Manila has a stronger hand. Thitu Island lies well inside the Philippines' 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. The 2016 Hague Tribunal ruling threw out Beijing's 9-line claim. China didn't just reject that ruling, it acted like it never happened. And in the South China Sea, actions tend to matter more than signatures on paper. This clash highlights three major shifts. First, Chinese tactics are growing bolder, ramming and blasting state vessels, not just fishermen. Second, the alliance response from the U.S. and allies is tightening, louder and faster than in previous incidents. Third, every Philippine patrol is now a high-risk operation. Military analysts believe Beijing may increase its presence near Thitu in the coming weeks, possibly deploying more militia boats or drone surveillance. The Philippines has already announced it will continue its missions despite Chinese intimidation. Washington, meanwhile, may increase U.S.-Philippine joint patrols in the area, a move that could raise tensions further. The next confrontation may not end with just water cannons. The image of that lone Philippine vessel refusing to turn away isn't just symbolic. It's a marker, one that shows how close this long, slow contest is edging towards something sharper. Beijing calls it lawful control. Washington calls it dangerous and destabilizing. Manila calls it home. 3 words, 3 stories, one very crowded stretch of ocean. The clash at Thitu Island wasn't a random outburst. It was a calculated move in a slow, grinding power struggle for control of the South China Sea. And as these confrontations grow more frequent and more aggressive, the margin for error keeps shrinking. Anchor this is Naval Brief. If you're all hands on deck with maritime conflict, naval power, and defense analysis, subscribe and stay mission ready for the next briefing.